Hello, I'm ABX Toycat, and welcome back to Deep in the Mind, the podcast where we get deep into all things Minecraft. And today, in particular, I have CrackedMagnet as my guest. He is known as the Seed Lord and is responsible for all sorts of things, from the biggest 12-eye portal finds to the most broken seeds that Minecraft has. And I think it'd be interesting to sit down and have a talk with him about various seed processes. So that's what we're doing today. Hello, I'm IBX Toycat, and you are...
CrackedMagnet.
And it's nice to finally have a face for the name. It is genuinely, it's really cool to be able to finally sit down and speak with you. There's a lot of questions about a lot of seed things I would love to ask. But first things first, you live in New Zealand, right?
Yes.
And what
New
biome
Zealand?
in Minecraft is New Zealand most like, from your experience?
Ooh. Probably combination of forest, dark forest. It depends on which places. I think a lot of biomes are covered. It's probably one of the reasons they're shooting the movie here, actually.
You think people should or shouldn't move there because they want more biomes? Is it a good seed? You know, would you recommend New Zealand as a seed, or would you say move somewhere with more diverse biomes? Australia's got badlands and
we've got
desert
plenty of cows and sheep.
Famously, the sheep.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't move here for the biomes necessarily.
What's the
It's
reason
like
to live in New Zealand? Sales pitch, go.
sales pitch.
Yeah.
Well,
You live there. You must like it somewhat, right?
I mean, I was born here, so it was more. It makes it a little harder to kind of compare it to somewhere you weren't born. But yeah, no, it's look, things are a bit more laid back. If you're living in the right places, you don't have massive commutes, i.e., not Auckland. Like I can get an Uber into town for like $20, and it takes 15 minutes. It's like, and that's like to like Parliament.
See,
So
it's weird though, because can't you live anywhere in the world and be a 15-minute commute from your city?
well,
Besides a
you
big
could.
city and the big nations.
At what cost though is the question.
Yeah, that is the big one. That is, I mean, but I guess like there is a city somewhere in the UK, somewhere in the US, somewhere in France, somewhere in Sweden, where you can live 15 minutes from the city at a very reasonable price. And so if you exclude your
Probably.
biggest city, which you said not Auckland, therefore I think that's
Yeah.
I know I'm the type of guy who likes to deconstruct, like, you know, everyone loves to believe there's something so unique about where they are, but the more you travel, the more you realize we have different preconceived beliefs and biomes, and everything else is the same, but we just kind of dress it up different.
Right. So what I really should be doing is selling you on why you should be visiting New Zealand.
It's so hard to
'Cause
visit New Zealand, though. It's so hard. I had to take the
Yeah.
longest flight in the world at the time last time to get there, and that was on top of the 8-hour flight to get to the Middle East to even do it. It was it's a flight where you
Yeah.
watch 2 movies, you go to sleep, you eat, you wake up, and it's like, oh god, it's still 7 hours to go.
Yeah.
It's
Yep. Yeah.
it's a long
I mean,
way.
even flying to the States from here is problematic. It's a big flight.
Yeah, real big.
But you're probably going to have to come down here if you want to go to Antarctica.
Oh, I think it's I've been looking into Antarctica because it's like the last continent I've got to visit at some point after visiting South. I think you go via Argentina. Usually,
Oh, they do it
Yeah.
that side. Yeah. Okay.
because they've got
Yeah.
the
'Cause
slightly
off.
closer. Yeah, it's more dangerous
Yeah,
because
I'm
of the
thinking.
Drake's Passage, but
Oh, are you thinking by ship?
yeah, how you can't fly to. Well, I guess you can fly to. If you have a lot of money, you can fly to Antarctica, but unless you've got Mr. Beast cash,
Right.
I think you got
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I was thinking more Scott Base type stuff.
more what based stuff.
Scott Base.
What is that?
Wait on. Are we still talking the same continent? We're talking the south one, right?
Yeah, the really
Yeah.
South Island.
Yeah.
You have your own base.
Yeah, Scott Base. Yeah,
Never
no,
heard
it's
of
New
it.
Zealand base down there.
I know. I should know it. I should know all the I should know all the Antarctica bases. But anyway, so yeah, why should I make the 25-hour flight to go visit New Zealand? What's the
I don't
big
know.
sales pitch? Shorter
Well,
commutes.
Well, that doesn't matter if you're traveling.
Yeah.
Um, no, you'd have to come for the birds.
Do love me some quirky birds. The southern hemisphere as a whole, like your whole continent, is just bizarre things that look like they shouldn't exist. But
And of course, we have the Kia, who is the party parrot.
there's a party parrot. Okay,
Well,
I'm in.
you
I'm
know,
in.
you
I'm
know all
booking
those
flights right
emojis
now.
with that parrot that are kind of bobbing around, the animated emojis, the party parrot emojis.
That's a New Zealand thing.
Well, yeah, yeah, and it all comes from Stephen Fry. He came down a while ago, and he was doing a whole last chance to see thing. And that parrot is basically a screen capture of this Kia basically mating with his head.
Oh yeah, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, yeah, I probably
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
that
yeah.
photo.
So that's where that comes from.
Wow.
And so you can buy a Lego set and construct this Kia with it, and it even comes with a little party hat.
I'm trying to do
And
the
so yeah, no,
parrot thing, but it's
yeah, it's more of a it's
do
kind of
do do
stupid.
do do do
It's kind of a
do.
circular motion. Yeah, it's like
Okay, I'm in. I'm coming. So you
yeah.
like living in New Zealand? It's a place that you are happy to be.
Well, I've never lived anywhere else, so
Why is that? Why do we all? Almost everyone has this like home place bias. Surely there are lots of places you could have lived.
well, I think you kind of tend to set up roots, um, or at least that was my case. And so it's basically moving two people is harder than moving one.
Double as hard.
So yeah, so it's a case of having to set up somewhere else always kind of requires two people to get jobs somewhere else and that sort of thing to do a sort of a permanent move. Um, so yeah, aside from a trip to the States and a couple of trips to a couple of other countries, yeah, I've never really left the country much. It's
That's
just sort of been
interesting.
all
It could
work.
be the whole rest of the world has some magical secret that New Zealand doesn't, and you wouldn't know so well. Could be the air in the UK just smells good all the time. It doesn't. It smells. It's very smoggy, but
Well, it could be none of these other countries that I've never visited exist.
yeah,
How do I know?
that's. I mean, that's the theory about New Zealand, right? The overwhelming majority of the human population will never go. So who's to say you're not just in an enclosed military base in Australia trying to simulate what it'd be like to have a country next door? You know.
Wasn't it that whole thing about Australia being fake?
Oh yeah, and Australia is also itself in a military base somewhere in I don't know one of the American states, which itself is a military base constructed in
Yeah.
Canada, so we could simulate having a world superpower. It's simulations all the way down, let me tell you. Speaking of simulations, one of the reasons I think that people might know you is because of the incredible seed finding work that you brought to the Bedrock world. Like, I think people had been doing a pretty decent job at finding weird things for Java seeds, but I think you were the first person that I know of that started not just looking for seeds by brute force, but instead like deconstructing how the seed generation code would do things. And so, for example, five structures stacked on top of each other was a finding of yours, or the giant holes in the ground um,
Yeah.
that from in the middle of lakes that would just go straight down to near bedrock layers. Like these incredible finds were due to you finding these like holes in the algorithm, and so I want to ask, like, how did you get into that?
Well, actually, you're probably partly responsible for that.
Me?
So basically, what happened was, it was basically a whole lockdown thing. Started playing Minecraft, started watching a few YouTube videos, including yours. I think I saw a Seed Sunday once, and I forget how many eyes were in the portal, but that was a particularly high amount, and it might have been, I don't know,
I think it
six
was
or
10 or
something.
11. Oh, it was only 6. Okay. I remember there was forever a 10 eye seed, and we were like, this is the highest that can ever be achieved.
Oh, it could have been 10. Could have been 10,
Um,
possibly. Um, but yeah, went and grinded that out, reverse engineered it. Went because the, I'm not sure which Seed Sunday it was, but that was the reason I sort of went, okay, I'll go find a 12 eye, having knowing nothing about seed finding at all. It's like I'll just work it out. And yeah, you just rip apart the Java code, and yeah, you can pretty much do that. The bit that was really surprising about that was
But you ripped apart the Java
I
code for Bedrock. Sorry, that's a part I need to mention. Like these are
yeah,
Bedrock seeds,
absolutely.
and you managed to do
Yeah,
it
yeah,
by
yeah.
finding the Java code.
The Java code decompiles so much
Yeah,
better than the Bedrock code.
deliberately. Yeah.
The well, yeah, well, I mean, it's why it's easy to mod.
Hmm.
It's Java just decompiles. Oh, and also they give you the symbols, not symbols, sorry, the mappings. So they obfuscate the code, and then they give you the mappings to deobfuscate it. It's like, wait on, why did you obfuscate it in the first place? Or why didn't you just obfuscate the bits you didn't want to deobfuscate? It's like, what? Why?
Oh yeah, I always
And
assumed there were some parts that weren't mapped, but the whole thing's mapped.
oh no, no, there are some parts
Okay,
that are mapped.
there's a few. That is the reason
They're
why.
usually to do with things like authentication and shit like that. Sorry,
You can say
language.
whatever you want. You said ship, and or you can have said it's all good, all good.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So it's yeah. So yeah, the code just decompiles like that, and in fact, it can decompile so cleanly that the stuff that they didn't give us, I can pretty much put little fake things in there to take their place, and actually recompile and run the Java server, and so that I can just edit the code directly without having to mod it. It's it's actually crazy how well Java decompiles. It's really crazy. Bedrock, on the other hand,
It's deliberately built not to
yeah,
decompile easily. I feel like it's the whole point is that it's like a proprietary program Minecraft are very happy with, not sharing.
yeah, it's yeah, Bedrock's an interesting one in that regard. So I use a tool that the NSA produce, and it's publicly available. It's free, whatever, Gehidra or whatever it is, and so I decompile it with that. And the problem with because it's been compiled, there's compiler optimizations. And the problem with the compiler optimizations is they will do weird things that you do not expect. And so you're not actually reading the code kind of as it was written. You're kind of reading what the decompiler thinks the code might have been. So
Yeah.
you're kind of having to insert a lot of those blanks. And so that's a lot of the reason why I start with the Java. It makes it so much easier. And then what I tend to do is I tend to adapt the Java code and kind of alter it in such a way that it produces the same results as Bedrock.
See, so I know
And
you're saying it
yeah,
almost like this is fairly easy, but I think for almost everyone, step one of that was confusing. Step two is really confusing, and by step three, you're basically talking witchcraft. So I think I need to ask, like, do you have a background in computer science or in IT of some form at the very least, right? You must do.
yeah, yeah,
It's hard
yeah,
to read you
yeah.
physically
So
because you've got a suit on, so you could be a businessman. You got the audio set up, so you could be like, and the hair that makes you look like you could be a guitarist. But then you've got a high enough level computer set up that you could be a computer nerd. You've got all three levels going. You could. What is your real life job like? What do you do there? If you can talk about
yeah, I work in clinical IT, so
clinical IT,
pretty
like
much
I'm thinking doctor when you say that.
hospital
Yeah.
systems.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So hospital systems, lab results, things like that.
Has
Often
your
it's
IT ever killed a person or saved a
hmm?
person? Has your IT work killed or saved a person? That's the first thing I jump to when you're talking about medical.
I don't. Mine personally, I don't think it has ever killed anyone that I know of.
That's good. That's
Um,
good.
uh, but undoubtedly will have saved someone at some point.
Yeah. Even if through the sheer combination of efficiency from various systems.
A lot of it's integration, access to information. So basically, they may have made a different decision because they had access to information they didn't have before. So a lot of it's just like integrating the different DHBs. So your NHS will have different hospitals, and imagine if they couldn't actually access each other's stuff, which was probably the case at one point.
Yeah, yeah, till shockingly recently, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the things I did was just got the systems to all gel together. Not gel. I mean, it wasn't completely seamless, but
But
it
like
was
New Zealand as a
pretty
whole,
darn good.
like
Three of the DHB, so about half of the North Island. Well, a
it's a
quarter,
big,
third of the North Island, quarter of the North Island, about
it's a
that.
huge deal. That's millions of people, or
About a million.
about a million. I mean,
Yeah,
1.01 million is millions of people.
yeah. So, I mean, and
So
anyway,
it's
so
zero
the
point
moment we
0.9
put
million.
that in, we had cases where they would have had to cancel surgery because they didn't have an appropriate lab result
Yep.
to confirm that it was safe to do surgery, but the lab result it did exist, but now they can access it. So it's things like that. So I mean, I would imagine at some point something not being delayed has caused someone to live instead of have a negative outcome.
And that's on top of all the better treatment and slightly better outcomes that you probably achieved here and there. So overall, like, two thumbs up for you're not just helping people in their Minecraft seeds. You've got a job where you presumably get some fulfillment on knowing that you're doing stuff there. Maybe not.
Yeah, there's a bit of restructuring going on at the moment. So, yeah, um, it's one of these cases. It's a bit like that whole Minecraft getting too big. Like the whole hospital IT stuff is getting too big and too cumbersome, and it now moves way slower than I would like. So, yeah.
So I wanna to bring it all back into your Minecraft linking there, which is it's funny that even the way that you see your job security is tied in. How is it that that ability to just make hospital systems? How do you feel like? Because most people wouldn't be able to take any amount of knowledge and turn it straight into seeds. How did you get from that to working out bugs in Minecraft's code that no one had seen before that could be exploited for incredible speed running gain and for even just shocking seeds realistically.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. It's not something you can actually just sort of teach someone. It's ever since I was a child, it's been a case of I've always pulled things apart to see how they work. And so it's all disassembling things and fascinated by the mechanics of things and the electronics of things. And so it's, I can sort of attack something that I know nothing about and kind of work out logically how to get to a decent result. I mean, before I was doing the Minecraft stuff, I had a old 1998 arcade machine in the garage, and I worked out how to repair it, how to diagnose it, how to. So I was actually working with hardware at that point. So I mean, and I'd never done that before either. So um,
You're good at
yeah, it's
taking
hard to
on new
describe.
projects that you don't already know. Counter to what most people are good at, which is you need to practice a million times before you can do it. You almost like the
Mm.
unfamiliarity of a project that is something that is unknown.
Well, it's all a puzzle. And that's the kind of the way I approach it. It's like you don't know the solution to a puzzle. There might be methods for solving it that are known, but I'd rather dive in and actually try work out what those methods are myself. I'm not one of these people that sort of Google's code and copies and pastes it. I mean, I do occasionally, but that's only for things that aren't puzzles. It's like, okay, I
I
I
think
don't need to solve this. Someone
every
else has done
aspect of
this.
life can be seen as a puzzle, even like interior design, right? Like if you look at the weirdly shaped room that I'm in, there is an optimal way to use this shape of room. There's an optimal way to design the room behind you. Like, should that storage box be over there, or should it be next to that white shelf? Should your guitars be on some hung up display with, like there's all these optimal optimizations that can be made everywhere, and once you get it right, it's like it's solved, it's done. There's a level of knowledge you can obtain for like your audio setup. You were talking about this, how, oh yeah, you don't have a treated room, so you've got a microphone that's really, really good up close but bad at a distance, that's solving the audio puzzle for your situation. And I think that's. I wonder why that comes to. But it seems to come to video games for you. Is it like a passion thing?
Ah, with the video games. I mean, I've been playing video games since the 80s. So, yeah, Commodore 64, you may have seen references to that at some point. You may never have played any of those games.
No, because I was born in '95, but I've only ever played 3D games. That's my weird like I had a Mega Drive, but I can't recall playing a game before the 3D era. It's
Right.
so I know of Commodore
Yeah.
64s, but it's as
Yeah,
good as
the
I
old
get.
8-bit sprite stuff. Yeah. It's actually amazing how far they could push that tech. It's no, it's yeah, but that's kind of where that started, and I started programming back in those days as well. And that was kind of the equivalent of copy paste. There were paper books that would have program listings, and
Yeah, yeah,
you'd
I've
type
heard
them
about
in, and
that.
you wouldn't know what the stuff actually did. But then something wouldn't go right, and then you'd have to understand what you'd done wrong, and then why that didn't work. And that's kind of it's that sort of first principle type stuff that it's kind of where I tend to excel quite well. At work, I am more often than not dealing with diagnostics, as in not clinical diagnostics, systems
Yeah,
diagnostics. This
yeah.
is running slow. Why is it running slow? It's that sort of thing. Because I can get in there at very low levels if I have to.
Uh huh.
Yeah, just look at the databases and what they're doing and the profiles, all sorts of yeah. Anyway, it's lots of technical stuff that just doesn't occur naturally to people. Um,
So
I'd
do
have no
you
idea why.
do you feel some sympathy for looking at the Minecraft developers who, like, at this point, there are very few people besides Jeb who have been there for any of the original, like, creation of the whole Minecraft 1.0, basically, even. And so everyone has to sit there and take a part code that exists already, work out how it works, and then build massively on top of it, on top of all the being hamstrung by administration and, like, oh, someone else doesn't like this code design, so you got to do it again. Like, do you feel like um, in their shoes you would feel like too chained up, or do you feel like that's something you're used to because you work in government IT?
Um, I don't think I'd particularly fit a role like that well, to be honest. I would probably work better in this sort of I'll f- I'll find out what the problem is and what's causing it. How you guys want to solve that is up to you. And that's kind of where you do that sort of handoff. Because that's when all the politics and everything else come into it. Especially when game balance is involved.
The
Because yeah, game rebalancing can cause some issues.
Yeah, as a community, I mean, this past week has proven it. Like, people don't, as a community, I feel like we don't want a balanced game, or we want a balanced game, but we hate the way that you actually have to achieve it. Like, people have extreme issues with things changing on them, and that's what you have to do to balance a game. But even like internally as a studio, one of the real struggles is everyone has a slightly different take, and the only way to, the politics of balancing that is going to create a worse game. Like, person A says we should
Oh yeah.
never have any don't ever kill any mobs to do something. Person B says, but we need decent food. And person C says, I don't know, what about spaghetti? And they're like, the only way to square all three of those people's opinions is technically to just put spaghetti in the game. Like dumb examples like that. Like, people who design by committee is never the best way to do compelling art,
Oh
right?
no, no, definitely not. And one of the things I find quite interesting about Minecraft is that a certain amount of the player base, and a significant amount actually, well, of the probably the more mature players, they almost make it their job to make sure that they don't have to play the game. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
you're kind of you, your objective is so that you do not have to play. It's like then what's the point? It's like iron farms. I don't make iron farms. Well, I don't actually play that much, to be perfectly honest. But I don't make iron farms. The ore veins were actually a good solution to that. It's like you go find one. How much iron do you actually need?
The smart thing about that as a solution is, you're right, is they didn't nerf iron farms. They've accidentally done it a couple of times, but they fixed it because of outrage and death threats or whatever. But like the idea that you don't nerf something, you make something better, is really clever game design. Because then you just have to then the people who want to keep doing the same thing, like you say, not playing Minecraft, just keep not playing
Yeah.
Minecraft in the background. But then new players making the decision are like, yeah, it makes so much more sense to grab a fortune pickaxe. You mine one iron vein and you're sorted for life in half the time it takes you to start building an iron farm. Plus you have to sit near the iron farm, so it's not actually free iron, it's just converting time into iron. In the case of my very expensive European electricity, I'm paying money for that iron. It's a microtransaction at that point.
Yeah, yeah. And this is the thing that gets me. It's like, oh no, you can AFK. It's like, wait on. So now we're explicitly saying you're not playing the game.
Yeah, right. That's the worst bit. That's the AFK fish farm
You
is
know.
the same thing. Of like, yes, I would rather not play the game than have to go and find my own enchantments. And it's like, wait, really? There's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah, and you can do whatever you want to do, but it just feels like we should want to enjoy ourselves.
And I think this is where this villager trading rebalancing is sort of coming along. And it's basically going, yeah, okay, you can have easy stuff, but it's not as easy, and it encourages people to explore, and I quite like that. Because I mean, previously my solution to the whole mending issue was, if you get it from a villager, it should come with Curse of Vanishing.
Oh, I like that.
So yeah, yeah. So it's like yes, but if you get it any other way, it doesn't. So it's like there's the good mending books and there's the bad mending books. You can get the
Temporary
bad mending
mending
books
and
easily.
permanent mending. Yeah. I like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
as a solution. I mean, I don't think the community would. I think that'd result in,
Oh
some
yeah.
dangerous things being. But you're right. That though is that case of game balance that is technically taking away from people who would then feel like, oh, but the right thing to do was never make mending available from trading. Right. That was
Yeah, pretty
it
much.
should have been this rare enchantment that you will search for, because then you've got to make the hard decisions about what gets mending first. How long do you spend looking for mending before you say that's enough tools of it? But instead, it's like everything gets mending. You buy 25 copies of it, and now you put mending on your fishing rod and your carrot on a stick. And so I think that's the
And
place we're at.
and the function of mending, it is again so that you don't have to play the game. Because of course you don't need to go and get new tools because they never run out. So it's like now, and that is probably stretching it a little bit because of course the other way to look at it is if you spend enough time in the game, you can eliminate the inconveniences of the early game,
Yeah. The
which is progression.
But you would still be progressing if you traded for efficiency 5 and had to reapply it to every new diamond pickaxe or every new netherite pickaxe that you got.
True,
But yeah,
true.
I think a lot of people do like to play a game so hard that eventually they can stop playing the game. And to give that the tiniest bit of defense, in a way, if you love something enough, because you can't play Minecraft 24 hours a day, the only way to actually play it in those hours you're not playing it is to do something AFK and be like, I'm still making that progress.
True.
I love idle games. I don't know if you've ever gone into one, like Cookie Clicker. It's so fun whenever you come back and it's like, yes, while I was asleep, I got 12 million cookies. I got 6 million
I've never
idle
tried
games or
one.
whatever.
I've never tried one. The closest I got was that. What was that? There is no game.
Oh, I like There Is No Game. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, because there was that whole cookie clicker piece of it. It was
it's
just like,
there's
hmm.
the other example that comes to mind on your same thought point is Stanley Parable. There's an achievement you can
Oh
only
yeah,
get
that's
for
great.
not playing the game for 5 years. I think I might be eligible for that by now.
They changed it with the deluxe one, I think.
Oh, they did?
I Well, it might be 5 years now.
Did it used to be less?
I think it might have used to have been a year. I can't recall. But either way, you can just advance the clock.
Yeah. I guess you have to use
That's
a
how people have it.
yeah. You have to use like a third party set. That's what I used to do in Animal Crossing, because you can only play that game for 20 minutes a day. They like deliberately want you to be like, come back tomorrow. It's like, no, I will come back 20 minutes from now, and it's tomorrow. Um, it's weird because the system clock could tell, or the game would tell that you'd done it, and it would like, I think there's like a character in there that goes like, your repeaty says you're cheating. I thought that was kind of wholesome. Not stopping you,
Oh,
just
it's
saying, trying to make you feel bad.
yeah. I wasn't there a game that pinged you for save scumming?
Is there? Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I see. There's this. It's funny how many mechanics. That's a good example of like if you can save a game, logically you should be able to save every 5 seconds, and therefore logically there are no consequences for dying, even though consequences for dying make a game more fun.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I'm kind of guilty of that even at Minecraft.
You save scum
It's like,
Minecraft.
I haven't that. I in certain situations, it's the classic you die in the ancient city. It's like, right, back up the world because I know that stuff's only going to survive for 10 minutes and I need to find it again.
I think if I was playing Java hardcore for non YouTube reasons, if I had like never gotten into this, I think I'd be the guy who's like, I'm just gonna back this up. It's been 3 years. I don't want to lose it. Um, I think
Of
even
course, hardcore worlds, you can back them up.
yeah, there's
Didn't even
no
think about it.
there's
Yeah.
the hardcore and every hardcore Java series. If every YouTuber that does them, they never die because you'd be making a poor financial decision if you weren't backing up your world every 5 minutes. Like you are
Right.
the financial incentives align such that it never makes any sense not to. And I that's why I've never bothered doing like a long term. If I'm doing hardcore, it has to be streamed because otherwise there's no. Uh, you can never trust a non-streamed hardcore series. And even if
Because
you
you,
can, I
because
mean,
you actually dipped your toes into the dark side recently, didn't you?
I
With the
might have.
bedrockified thing.
Yeah, yeah. That helps. That makes Java a lot more playable. It doesn't have Big Salmon though, so what's the point?
Yeah, but you got the Fabric installed and the
Yeah, I do
API
have.
for Fabric.
Man,
Because
yeah, yeah. You go.
you know about the seed finding mod?
No, no. How does it work?
No, I have a seed finding mod
And it works
for
in Fabric.
Java. Yeah, and finds bedrock seeds
Oh, oh, that is very interesting.
in game. So you basically use commands to set your criteria, and it goes finds the stuff, then creates a new dimension and actually puts you in the seed.
Whoa. I'll give that a shot.
And then yeah, and then it gives you a book with the details about what you searched for and the seed, and you can do various things like query the biome distributions and things, and go, oh, it's this percent this biome and this percent that biome, and yeah. So I mean, it's fairly simple, um, but and that's actually another interesting point because a lot of the seeds I find are not particularly useful for playing Minecraft.
Yeah, I with as someone who's done like the way lower end version of what you did, like I was one of the first people to just bulk search seeds to find the best ones. But it's so true that the things that get interesting to you as someone who's like, wow, this is a 1 in 1,000 seed. You're like, but like, I don't think anyone would take advantage of this. So I've always had that balance in my videos. I can imagine that when you're on the code level, you're finding stuff that's so statistically significant, but also would mean nothing to an end player in any realistic term.
Yeah, and this is a thing, and it's one of the reasons I actually don't produce a lot of content. It's not a lot of it is interesting enough for me to actually go to the effort of making a video. It's like it's got to be out there a bit, and because I mean I've got piles of seeds just sitting around that I've forgotten about, and I've highlighted and gone, oh, that's kind of interesting. And for a lot of people, they might be perfectly good seeds for what they want to do. But it's all about what you want the seed for. It's the utility, especially with the speedrunning stuff.
Speaking of making your life easier, allow me to quickly interrupt you with a word from our sponsor of this week. This episode of Deep in the Mind is brought to you by Factor. They are a service I've actually used while I was in the United States because it's America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. This can help you deal with, having your own day while having the meals be handled very easily. And as someone who really enjoys food, Factor actually gets it. It's not just easy to get the meals, which are delivered straight to your door. It's also incredibly delicious meals. You can go for gourmet plus options if you want to go for incredibly fun options that are very, very fast, or you can go for a calorie conscious option, which will allow you to make sure the autopilot decisions are as simple and as healthy as possible. This is something I really like. It can be so easy when you're busy to make poor health decisions, but you can make that a lot easier with Factor. If you also want, there's lunch to go, there's vegan, they can cater for a lot of, there's protein plus, you can cater for a lot of different dietary requirements, which is something I absolutely love. If you need an extra boost to support your wellness goals and feel best for the rest of the summer, then this is something which I absolutely recommend. There are over 45 add-ons. You can get so many delicious meals. I have really enjoyed some of the ones I've had, and I'm mentioning this service because genuinely it is one that I enjoy. If you want to get this for yourself, if you want to have some ready-to-eat meals that are going to be some of the best you've had, then go to factormeals.com/deepinthemind50 and use code deepinthemind50 to get 50% off. That's code deepinthemind50 at factormeals.com/deepinthemind50 to get 50% off. And, personally, I'd recommend it if you are in that situation of being very busy and wanting to have wholesome and also tasty meals. Trust me, I'm someone who likes food a lot, and this is something I can 100% recommend. But let's get back to the podcast now. Anyway, so to get back into what we were saying there, so you have some seeds that you have sat on that you think are really handy for Soul and Survival World, but that you haven't gone through the effort of making a video for.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of seeds that are like that.
And I can see
because
them. I can check them out.
Yeah. No, I can pass you a few seeds that I've stumbled across, because quite often when you're doing seed searches, you'll find something that's interesting, but it wasn't what you were actually looking for. And there's quite a few like that, and there's quite a few interesting seeds. I'll pass you a few.
If you see a Seed Sunday this week with some weird seeds, you know where they came from.
Yeah. Just stuff you forget about as well, and quite often, you'll kind of find what you wanted, and then you go, actually, that's not that interesting anymore. It's like, yeah,
that's the weird.
I can't make a video about that.
Even stuff like the seed I was most sure was the biggest, craziest find was 4 Trail Ruins by Spawn. But then the problem is, as a survival player, 1 Trail Ruins probably has enough for you. And also, it's quite late game, so spawning by it doesn't really save you. And then also, everyone knows about chunk base. And so, most people don't even care about structures anymore because it's just a matter of time. It's not a matter of, wow, it's right there. It saves me all this effort of finding it. And so, these, tiny changes in player, what a person has access to, entirely changes what makes a cool seed, even though these things are just as statistically significant as they were before. And so...
Yeah, and it is a bit like that, actually. Because when you asked for that one, I went, why does he want that? Because the problem with that is that it's not that visually interesting. Because you only get to see the top bits.
The seed that would interest the most people, despite having no value to any of them, would be a village... or multiple villages that connect over and over again. If you could, that's an example of a seed that I know would be a 1 million view video that 12 people would want to use as a long-term survival world. It would be, there's this weird disconnect between what is interesting and worth talking about and what is actually useful. I think this probably applies to Minecraft updates themselves, and the Trail Ruins is really exciting when you first say it. But also, once you get deep enough in a world, it's only useful for getting those weird niche items that most people probably forgot about after the update. And in 5 years will be considered weird.
Well, I think part of the thing that a lot of people miss about the Trail Ruins is it's not so much about what you get out of it. It's about the process of doing it. If you think about the Trail Ruins like an adult coloring book, it completely changes the perspective of it. And it could be quite cathartic to actually just excavate this thing as if you were excavating a ruin. Like you actually play that sort of a role rather than give me my loot so I can leave.
I do
Which is
enjoy it on that
yeah.
level. Like when as you slowly see the structure come into being, it's like, wow, this is actually really well
Mm.
considered. Like, you do feel like you're uncovering some ancient culture. Um, but then I think it's all lost when you realize that like Minecraft are deliberately trying not to have any lore that sticks, and so every piece of lore you can imagine, I'm like, they probably didn't mean this. They're probably just maybe I've got to like suspend my disbelief a bit and be like,
Well, the thing with Minecraft lore is that it functions there as a basis to create your own stories. And
yes,
that's the way I see it. So telling you having lore that is fixed in terms of telling you what the actual story is and its outcome and like putting things in there that don't make you ask questions is no better than a cutscene.
do you think the ancient city portal is a good or a bad example of a feature then? Assuming they never intend to use it for something, uh, is it a good lore feature or is it a bad lore feature?
I'd say it's good. The reason being, you can come up with your own interpretations of what that portal was used for, how the warden came in. Like, why is the warden there? Is the warden protecting this portal? Is did the warden come through this portal? Is there another warden dimension? Is it like so? It sort of is a imagination catalyst. Is kind of the way I could see it. It's and it kind of makes sense because of course it helps from a marketing point of view as well because people talk. They talk about what they think this is, and so the more people talk about something, the more people see people talking about something.
But as a player, do you want to have those interesting marketing features, or would you rather just be like, here is a cool thing that Minecraft like if you like when you have a fixed lore, Minecraft can build towards things and we can be like, oh yeah, have you heard they're finally gonna reveal what's in the portal? Have you heard that we're finally gonna understand what ancient culture came before, archaeology and desert temples and jungle temples? That would hype people up so much.
It would, but it'd be
Maybe
very
more so
short
if they made
lived.
up the story themselves, but
Yeah, it would, but it'd be very short lived, of course, because it's coming, it's here. Oh, that's cool. When's the next thing? And it's
what's the
kind of
update
what
problem?
updates sort of became. Not that because I mean, I only started playing at about 1.16. I think
Blows
they'd
my
just
mind,
come
by the
out.
way. To like, I feel like anyone, especially older Minecraft players, usually got into it. Like, yeah, I've been playing since 2010. Just and that's exactly my story. But it's weird to learn that someone got into Minecraft past 2020. Like this is the end game to me. But logically, tens of millions of people are buying copies every year. I just assume they're all second copies and buying it for children or getting as a gift for someone that you want to play with that doesn't really care about it. It's weird to get someone
Well,
hardcore in it today.
I mean, I started playing Minecraft because of 2020.
Okay, you said that
But
actually to touch on that earlier. So the two incompatible statements in your thesis are that you had a pandemic lockdown thing, but also that you lived in New Zealand. I mean, the world's perception is that New Zealand was like a bubble for a solid year and a half, and then had like a very short "oh god, we have COVID now" thing, and then right back to where you are now.
yeah, so that's a kind of an interesting one. Because we were great until Delta came along. Sorry, Omicron.
Worst airline.
Yeah, one of those. So basically, we were fine, and we just had to, because we were locked down for a while, and that's I started doing that right initially. But I mean, part of the issue is that I guess my wife was a little more paranoid about the the COVID than I probably was. But I did have a stint that could go back to work, but of course, once the next variant came along and sort of started to sweep through, it was like, okay, right, working from home again. And so that's pretty much what happened.
That was the weird thing to me about like as an individual, you are quite lucky to you can kind of take pandemic stuff as you want, like disease stuff even. Like if you don't want to wash your hands after before cooking food or after going to the bathroom, it's your choice. It's weird. Some people might not like those decisions. When you start living with someone, how dirty you leave the sink, or how much you go outside during what might be a very serious pandemic. These become like relationship breaking questions. Like I do understand. Like that's one of the hardest things about hygiene is unlike everything else where if you really like sports team A and I really like sports team B, we can just agree to not go to either of their games or to go to both. You can't agree to do high hygiene and to do low hygiene because to the high hygiene people, low hygiene cancels it out. And to low hygiene people, you're going through a lot of unnecessary hoops just to appease someone's mental state.
Yeah, I think her position was very much a case of, well, older people are susceptible.
Yeah.
Like, as in, the less we go out and the less risk we have of contracting it, not because of us, but because if we end up passing that on to someone else, who passes that on to someone else, who then ends up dying, then it's like, yeah.
Do you
And
think you're
it was
responsible
more
for
about,
third order things like that?
well, I wouldn't say responsible, but it's nice to, you know, try not to. Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically try to be a bit more responsible.
If I
I
make
mean,
a
it's
video, sorry, I just to jump in with
yeah,
a tiny dumb analogy here. If I make a video and it has some like I've had this, some people send me this like, man, I was really depressed, was gonna like save my life. I don't know how true it is, but someone says you saved my life,
yeah.
man. But then that person whose life I saved goes on to kill 3 people. Should have I done a positive thing or a negative thing by making that video that helped that person out, such that they didn't die before committing their 3 murders?
I would say it's a positive thing as long as the video also is like
Have an anti-murder
if the
disease.
video wasn't the thing that made them want to commit the murders.
But it,
Because it could be both. It could be, oh, I don't need to do this to myself anymore. I can kill 3 people instead.
I mean, what if it was though? What if I have the advice of, rather than taking out the pain on yourself, find the people who wronged you, take it out on them. They're the ones who deserve it.
It does sound like something you might say.
It does sound like something I probably have. Now I have said it. Just so, if you're watching this right now and you have these feelings of hurt against yourself, it's not your fault. It's everyone else's. Just remember
Yeah,
that.
just go murder some people. Yeah, that's all good. That won't
Like
get
you're
you
already gonna kill
demonetized.
someone. Why make it the most important person? You? Yeah, there's some people that probably need it. Go get them instead. Don't
Yeah.
murder. That's my hot take. I can't have a sponsored video where I tell people to murder people. Instead, do
Yeah.
easy home cooking. It's good. There we go. Covered my liability.
Easy home cook. But yes, I mean, in general, yeah. I mean, if you were encouraging the unaliving of certain peoples, then yes, I would say that you do bear some responsibility, even if it was a bit jokey.
What if I
'Cause
encourage someone to kill people, and then someone of my subscribers goes out and murders 3 people, but each of those 3 people were about to go and murder 3 people each? Would I then have done a positive thing by encouraging 3 murders because it saved 9 lives? Or 6 lives net, I guess.
Did you know that would be the end result?
Oh, is that the crucial thing? You have to know what you're doing?
Well, or have it's all about balancing risk. Like, if you know that these people are super high risk for going and doing that, and now, now we're getting to Minority Report territory.
I almost think like, so if I just never followed COVID. It never came up. I learned about it 3 weeks ago. I was shocked. Like, the world went into lockdown. Oh, And so during that whole time, I was going out in public, coughing in people's faces, just doing my day to day life. Is ignorance a defense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you didn't know anything,
If Minecraft doesn't know that the community is going to negatively react to mending changes, is that okay? Like, or rather the EULA thing. If they don't know that they're actually freaking out a large portion of their player base, is it a really fine thing? By asking the community, are they doing a worse thing because now they're informed?
yeah. So, yeah. Yes. Yes. Mojang or Microsoft has a communication problem.
Yes,
They definitely have a communication
no
problem.
question.
I formed that opinion the moment that I saw that face on screen that said, what is it? Concept art is not a commitment.
Oh,
And it's like, how tone deaf was, well, I mean, tone deaf's well, it was tone, well, I don't know if
yeah,
tone deaf's
tone.
the right term.
I think, yeah, it
It's like,
was. Yeah, tone deaf. I think it's fair. Like it was taking a valid concern and saying, "You guys are dumb, and we're smart," and then middle finger up to everyone. What do you
and because the other
mean?
thing is,
Yeah.
because who would have been better giving that news? I mean, Angus,
Agnes. Yeah, yeah. I think
Agnes, yeah, yeah,
Jeb
yeah.
and Agnes is who they use to roll out bad news. Actually, in fact, they've done it before that and after that, and it
Hmm.
makes sense to
So,
hear it from a developer than a She's like she has the most business focused role out there. Like she has a very generic title.
so
No
the
offense to
the
her. You're
first
probably a
question
lovely lady. No, you bet you
when
got
I
really great
heard
opinions. It's just that particular corporate line is a very by a very corporate person is tone deaf.
well the choice is that why wasn't it Agnes?
It could be two things, right? One is that all of the developers were like, "No, we should delay the update and put it in there," and they weren't kind of happy with like rushing it for
Yeah.
that deadline. Because I've spoken to people. This isn't like a secret because I've had these conversations
Mm.
on some form of live stream. But multiple developers have told me now when we look at the sales chart for Minecraft, every time we release an update, it goes like that. You are by delaying an
Yep.
update, you are throwing tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars by the time you count, second order impacts on the table. And so delaying an update for Fireflies would be really stupid, would be monumentally, like on a money level. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I think that is why they have to make these hard decisions that maybe the people who are making the game don't want. Like, I think the case of Caves and Cliffs was a split that the developers like that was like a compromise between we need to release an update, our update isn't ready. Um, Whereas the maybe 1.19 they just didn't compromise. They said no, you're releasing it. Doesn't matter if it doesn't have any wild features in it. Just throw it out there. People will love it.
Yeah. Because the Caves and Cliffs was quite interesting actually. Because that's when I first started getting into the biome stuff. Because of course they were
It
changing
all
it all.
changed. Yeah,
So yeah, they're changing everything. It's like everyone's gonna need new seeds. So I was like,
it's
all right, better get on top of this.
it's annoying going back to my like. There's a cutoff date. It's like 2 years and like 6 months. Any video I have that's beyond that, I try to like. I go back to my old seed video and I'm like, oh, this is a Swamp Village seed. Oh, it's from 4 years ago, so it doesn't work. Um, like Minecraft has these like continual cutoff dates where like everything's changed again, but this is the last time. But we're gonna have to do one last final everything changes when Java and Bedrock sync up their structures and their all their other tiny terrain details, right? So
Yeah, yeah, that'll happen eventually, probably,
has
maybe.
I don't. It's weird that it didn't happen at the same time. I don't know. I mean, maybe you know why. Actually,
Oh,
it's the right person to ask.
oh, I think a lot of that is probably. Well, the thing that gets me is that they'll do a parity change, right, to structures and the grid sizes and whatnot, and then they'll completely miss that, like Java's like linear distribution, and then Bedrock's focus towards the center of the grid, and it's like, so you changed the grid size, but you didn't bother to do the other bit. So it's because like getting a 0, 0 village in Java is far, far, far more likely than it is on Bedrock, even though the grid sizes are the same.
Why? It sounds like from what you said, the opposite should be true. So why is it that it's more likely on Java with less center
Oh,
features?
because 00 is at the corner of the grid, not in the middle.
The corner of 4 grids, right? Or just the corner of
Yes.
one? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, right.
Yeah. So, yeah. So
Oh, it
that's kind
tries
of
to go
why
to the
that's
center of each individual. Right, I got you.
great. Right. Yeah. Center bias. Basically what it does is it, instead of choosing a random X and a random Z, it chooses two X's and two Z's and averages them.
Oh, yeah, I can see how that. There's almost
Yeah.
no way to get uh, low and high numbers from that, or at least it's
Well, it's
doubly.
not no way, but it just means that, like, if you've got I don't know, if you've got, say, an area that's of 20 by 20 that you're targeting it, getting the 00 is like, it's like 20 times 20 times 20 times 20, one in that. you know,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it makes it a lot less likely. Um, yeah, because I've caught myself out with that, failed seed searches. Actually, one of the interesting things with 1.18 was when they had that oh crap moment. They had this oh crap moment, and they went asking the community for seeds because the template seeds wouldn't work anymore.
Yeah. I
And the
remember
moment
that.
they did that was good because it was a signal that they had stopped doing massive changes to the world gen. So I knew we were good for there. So I threw some in, and I think about 5 or 6 of them are actually in game.
Oh, so funnily enough, I'm about to at some point in the next month. I want to review all of the new default seeds, and so some of those are. I always assumed that would be your jam, but some of those are your findings.
Yeah. And
It's
actually,
pretty
some of them I
significant.
was even taking the piss.
You really? How
Like,
so?
yeah, because it was like, oh right, spawn is close to whatever feature, and they had listed things, and it's like Woodland Mansion. It's like, okay, fine. And so that's why you spawn on top of a woodland mansion in that seed.
Yeah. That's the funny one.
I
That's
I was taking the piss. It
you.
was you seriously don't want that, right?
Yeah, as
I
a
wasn't expecting them to choose that one.
that's funny that yeah I thought it was weird that you spawn on a willow mansion, but I was like, I guess this is what Minecraft went with. It's interesting, yeah, that's it's way less desirable than walking close to one. You would assume, but I maybe it's more fun for some players. That seems like a seed you'd find in a weird video as opposed to one built into the game, right?
Yeah, well, what was quite interesting is because they changed they reintroduced the namespace into the hashes so that the hashes had changed. So I had to work out what they'd done
Uh
before
huh.
I could even give them any seeds. And so I got that sorted out within about an hour of getting up in the morning. And I just threw together a few of the easy finds, threw it up there, and it looks like all they did was went down the posts until they found what they needed. So the earlier posts
Interesting.
seem to be the ones it was biased towards.
Wow, that's incredible. See, I love the every complex system at some point has someone doing their job where they're just like, I need to do this fairly soon. Let's get it done. No matter how
And
much.
that's one of the reasons I think it was an oh crap moment because they didn't seem to curate those seeds particularly well.
In
Because yeah,
It's weird though because if you think about a world with no deep seed finding tools, then it's almost better not to curate because the better they try to look for, the worse they're making that fresh discovery. Because the idea of seed templates you would figure would be, yeah, it's like vaguely something like that. It's a direction that it can go in. The ideal seed picker wouldn't even be a particular seed. It would be, we now tell the world gen to just try and spawn you somewhere near a sunflower plain, somewhere near a woodland mansion.
yep.
And so it's funny that less curation sounds good until you get people who know the very best woodland mansion seed. I think spawning on top of woodland mansion for an experienced player is the best woodland mansion seed. Like, you break one block down, you're in, you're going. So that's interesting. that mistake would be made. I'm excited to look through them now that I know there's some really zany, messed up ones in there. That gets me extra
Yeah, well,
excited to review all the default seeds.
they weren't actually anything particularly because they weren't asking for anything particularly special.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the stronghold below, in which case I literally went for stronghold spawns and then just dug straight down and went, did I hit it? Like right from spawn. It's like
So you actually
literally
can. Okay,
stronghold below.
it always annoyed me that the stronghold below was like walk 100 blocks to or like 50 blocks to a village, then dig down. It's like that's not below. That's stronghold over there. So thank
Yeah.
you. That's if now dig stronghold below, dig straight down. I give
Yeah.
you massive credit for making Minecraft a more honest game with their descriptions.
Yeah, yeah. It because I just took that literally and went, well. The interesting one, of course, is the mushroom island because you can't spawn on that anymore. Well, I can't categorically say that. I just cannot see a way that the noise generators could like. There's just the way the spawn calcs work. Mushroom Island is basically the antithesis of where it wants to spawn you. It's the exact opposite. It would rather spawn you in deep ocean than on one of those islands. So
It makes sense. As someone who spawned in a mushroom island randomly, I mentioned the story before. I went on a date with a girl. We decided to play some Minecraft together, and we spawned on a mushroom island. And it's like this isn't even playing Minecraft at some point. It was back when biomes went all the way down, so it's just we're basically playing peaceful mode. And in a way, that's a bad first experience. In the same way they got rid of the killer rabbit because like they don't want you to spawn in and be immediately murdered by a rabbit. They don't want you to spawn in and have that 1 in 1,000 chance of, oh, yeah, Minecraft doesn't have any mobs, huh? Because you'll just assume the game is broken, I think.
yeah, actually, that's a good point because if it was actually surrounded by water, because they weren't necessarily in 1.16,
Oh, it
17.
was so much better when they weren't, in my opinion. Like, I loved the conjoined seeds.
Yeah, because the funny thing with the mushroom islands now is they effectively force them to be islands by the fact that they are the deepest of deepest oceans, effectively.
The deepest of
That's
deepest
once you get
oceans.
past a certain, so it goes through ocean and then deep ocean and then mushroom island.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like the opposite of land. It's like, and that's the reason why it does not want to spawn you there
One of
because
my
it
questions
basically
I was
sees it.
going to ask you, like as a ending one, but it was going to be like, what is a seed that you hasn't been found that you'd be like incredibly impressed if it had been? And I felt it sounds like that's on there, like spawn in a mushroom biome. Is there anything else though that is like seemingly impossible but would be useful?
There's some things that I know are theoretically possible. Um, Possibly theoretically possible. Um, Great one would be the pillager outposts. What I've discovered accidentally is they don't actually just build those towers down. They copy the blocks.
They copy the
So
blocks.
so you notice how like when there's one of those towers, if one of them has a vine on it, all the way down it has the vine.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It does.
Because I had one on a woodland mansion and it just happened to be at that exact block layer was where the roof was, and it just copied the roof. So it didn't.
Oh, I didn't see
And so
that.
what I was
Yeah.
thinking is if I could get a spawner right at that layer, it could have an
Oh.
entire line. But the problem with that is, of course, it only goes down till it hits something. So you've got to try to find a spawner where you can take the floor out of it somehow.
And then
Eh,
those
yeah.
used to exist at least. Like it used to be very common to be in a desert and just find a spawner with no floor or ceiling. But I don't know.
Oh, like from a mine shaft.
I'm thinking like a skeleton spawner, a spider spawner, like way back when. I'm talking like beta 1.6.
Ah,
Sorry,
yeah,
like olden days. But like, yeah, I haven't seen one in years. So that is a challenge by
yeah,
itself, huh? That would be so cool to
yeah,
see a line of mob spawners.
yeah. Well, and
Right?
this is the thing, because you'd stand next to it and everything would just start spawning. I mean, visually, it would just be
Yeah.
great, because they'd just start spawning in the sky and just falling down, and it'd just be like, yeah, like I'd love to see that. But every so often I have a little think about how you could do it, and I keep going back to the same things because you've got to carve away the bottom of the dungeon, or because if you were using a mansion one, it'd be the floor, but you've got to carve away the floor somehow. And the problem is that the easiest way to do that's probably the air gap around a room portal, but
Now
they
you're talking
generate
about
after the pillager outposts, so that won't work.
you got to find a very specific set of structures generating that works in such a way that there'll be air there by the time the
Yeah,
pillager outpost gets there, but also the spawn is still there. I can see how that is a big difficulty. Big
yeah, and some of that stuff gets quite complicated. Um, like that, there was an interesting seed that for Java that Dylan Dylan something for I think it's Dylan D14 or something like that. He did, and it's a realm portal in a woodland mansion that lights itself.
Oh, I see how that
So
can
basic,
work, but yeah,
yeah. So it's the extra obsidian from one of the rooms in the mansion completes the portal, and the lava
wow.
causes the the mansion to burn, lighting the portal.
I'm so
So it's
jealous that
an
that's a
auto
Java
lighting
seed.
portal.
I would love to experience that.
Yeah, it's yeah. You Dylan. Yeah, I'll have to find it.
Yeah, I would love
But yeah,
to see Java seeds as a whole. Like maybe fun just to do a one time the weirdest things that only exist on Java. Because whenever it's structure based on Java, I'm like can never enjoy that myself. But my second question, just to give you another
hmm
seed one here, what's your favorite seed that you have discovered? One that exists that you think is you could say it's underappreciated, or maybe it's perfectly appreciated, but you love it and you're amazed by it still.
yeah. No, that's got to be the one with the the entire tower of structures. It's the Sky Aquifer. It's that was yeah, that's just me taking something and abusing it.
Just
That's
really,
that's
really
just
abusing it. That's
yeah.
the
Well,
sort of thing
that's
that
the
no
point.
person would ever find, right? Like the odds
No,
of
no.
some person ever running across that randomly so low. It could be in Minecraft for years and it would never be found. But you perfectly lined up the way the seed stuff worked. I was mind blown by that, really.
And it was actually funny because what tripped all that off was I was actually looking for flat terrain.
How does
So
flat
I was
terrain
looking at
equal that in the end?
well, so I was looking at the terrain shaper, and when the weirdness goes up, like at a certain point for most of the curves, it flattens off, like it's a completely flat line. So it's like, right, well, if I get that high, it's going to take time to come down, so it's going to be a bigger area of flat terrain. But then I pull up one of these seeds on chunk base, and it says there's buried treasure there. And I'm
Oh.
like, what? It's the middle of a forest. Chunk base, are you high? But I load the seed up, and sure enough, buried treasure's there. So they had actually simulated the bug in chunk base, probably unknowingly, because they actually don't simulate it anymore.
Interesting.
um, yeah, and so rather than doing the hard work myself, I just breakpointed their JavaScript to find out what on earth was going on and why it thought it was there, because it was right. So, and that's where the prelim surface height came up, and I went, oh crap. Looked at the Java code and went, oh, they've done the same thing on Bedrock, and they had.
Uh huh.
And it was like, looked at it, looked at the way that the Bedrock biome checks worked, and went, yep, that'll skip it.
And
And so then it was just a case of find the 32-bit piece of the seed where all of the structures want to generate in the same chunk, and there weren't many.
yeah,
And then,
it's so many unique structures from so many, like the Tiger Village, I think it is, and then it's a woodland mansion from a roof forest, and then it's a like the ocean monument needs the levels of finding that on a world with no biomes is already an insane challenge. So then to actually get it all in one spot and then hope that
Yeah.
the maths works out that it was all quite close together. It's crazy. It's
Well,
very
yeah.
crazy.
So it's a matter of getting it that close, and then you use the upper 32 bits to deal with the getting the weirdness levels and erosion that you need in order to get the depth you need to skip the biome check. I screwed that seed up as well.
How do you
There's an
screw it
error
up?
in it. Um, there was supposed to be a shipwreck in there, but there's a limiter which basically prevents shipwrecks from spawning near ocean monuments.
Oh, interesting. It could have
Yeah,
been
I
crazier.
forgot
It
about that.
should have been
I
crazier.
forgot. Yeah, completely forgot about it. So yeah, I messed that one up.
You'd
But
figure
the other,
on a
yeah,
game lore level, it makes sense if there were more shipwrecks near ocean monuments, because they would be the things that bring the ships down. I'm just saying, would make perfect sense.
would actually.
But anyway, yeah, sorry, continue.
The reason I chose that one because there were a few others, basically the same sort of structure sets, is of course the Pillager Outpost, sitting sky high up in the sky. Because at that point I had no idea what caused that. But it's one of those sky aquifers,
Frozen ones,
and
maybe.
you see,
Yeah.
well, yeah, well that one was frozen in, but yeah, that's that was a really interesting sort of thing because I didn't actually understand at the time what actually caused that. But the more I dug into stuff, I went, wait on, there's something wrong with the aquifer system. That's what caused the sinkholes. It's all part of the aquifer system. Same bug, effectively. Um, so I've lost my train of thought. One moment.
Happens to the best of us. The aquifer is the thing causing it, and so the same bug is leading to that.
Yeah. So one of the more interesting things is the way that the bug presents in Java versus Bedrock is different. And interestingly, if you get Java's preliminary service height function, if you return the same value that Bedrock does, Java ends up with the same sinkhole sizes and the sky aquifers that Bedrock has.
Oh,
So it's kind of funky like that. But what is also interesting is for some reason that I still don't understand, you need a terrain adaptation. So like a village that has the beard and shaver, or the ancient city that has the carve out, like that it just takes all the terrain out, so that it can put the city there, or a stronghold that has that berry where it encases it in stone. So one of those adaptations is required on Bedrock to get the sky aquifers to generate, and I have no idea why that is.
just a weird permutation of code working together. Do you almost hope that by one of the, it feels like from the way you talk about these things that you hope that someone watching this has the answer. Like whenever you're in like a small enough community, it's like there are like 7 people on the planet that understand what I'm saying, and I just hope one of them has the answer. Or is it like by giving out the information, it's like useful for people, but it's almost like getting it off your chest at the same time. You're like, just please, someone understand. There's you go deep enough in the code, and it stops making sense again. Once you understand enough, it stops being understandable.
Yeah, well, it is interesting because um, I do know I have inspired a few people to do some seed finding, and actually sort of get into it a bit.
Do you like that, first of all? You think that's a good thing, or
Oh yeah, actually, when I'm having a bit of a bad day, you know what I do to cheer myself up?
what do you do?
I take one of the seeds that I like, and I just throw it into the YouTube search bar, and then I see everyone else's shorts and their opinions and their, everyone else making videos on those about those seeds. And yeah, it's just really, yeah, I don't know, it's good to see people engaging and
That's wholesome. I'm glad
reproducing
you
that
like
sort of
that. I
content.
I remember that seed all the stacks went so ridiculously viral. I worried at one point you'd be like, "But I made a video, guys. Do you want to like?" Because obviously, like, some of the videos I saw gave credit. Some just didn't bother. They're like, "Yep, who knows
Yeah.
where this one comes from?" Um, and I was,
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that so much. The one that does annoy me slightly is when they pretend they found it themselves.
oh, it's
Yeah. But then
it's
of course there's finding it and finding it.
yeah. That is the odd thing is at some layer of removal how because like if I share the seed with someone and then they say, oh yeah, here's this awesome seed, and they share it with their friend, that person has now just received it from their friend who has no credit going all the way back down the chain. Like the same thing happened with sources at some point, right? Like someone uses a source that someone else got from a source that that person didn't, and you can sometimes say like, oh, they've made this mistake. I think with a famous enough seed, it's very easy to find out. But on the way more minor seeds, sometimes I've desperately looked for like someone must have found this at some point, but you can find nothing. You can just find it on a list of 50 incredible seeds that you should check out or something dumb like that. And it's like, the trail runs cold. And I know Son will be really upset in about like the only way for me to find the person is to put it out there, wait till the person's upset, and be like, yes, I needed to find you. There was no way to do it till just now. Thank you. And it almost comes across like rude that way. But maybe it helps you if you ever want to ask someone get credit. That sometimes people are like looking for the people who made the thing, they just can't find it.
Yeah, no, there'd be a certain amount of that. What I was more referring to is, yes, you found it on Reddit. It's
It's
that
hard to
sort
go
of
on
thing. It's
Reddit
like
and look for
technically
good seeds.
speaking, you found the seed. You didn't say that you actually loaded it up for the first time yourself.
Yeah, that is just disingenuous, right? But there's like I think we were saying earlier, there's a certain amount of that just on YouTube as a whole. There is always a level of people who would like to hype up themselves at others' detriment. Um,
It's a bit of an arms race, and that's is the thing. And it's an arms race I don't participate in quite intentionally. Um, One, I don't need the money, so there's no
I can tell
point.
you got a suit and like 12 guitars. You're killing it, I assume. You got a house
Oh yeah,
15
no,
minutes from the center of Wellington. Don't know what that costs, but in New
yeah,
Zealand, I bet it's expensive.
yeah. It's also not the only house I own, but
Whoa! Oh, wow. Wealth reveal.
yeah, yeah. We won't go into details, but put it this way: it's not the way you want to get rich.
Yeah. It'd be that. Yeah, that's a fun thing I think about a lot. Is if you have enough money, you stop being as invested in these tiny ways to make money because the net overall gain is so little in the grand scheme of things compared to the
Yeah,
work involved, right?
yeah. So I only make content to basically get the seeds out there and kind of. It's just that sort of it's the more of a sharing feedback thing. In fact, strangely enough, one of the reasons I started doing my own videos is because it was taking too long for you to put yours out. So it's like the delayed gratification was like, no.
Yeah,
It's like it'd be like 2 or 3 weeks down the track, and then finally the seed comes up.
one of the things I always wanted to like it's what kind of like we were saying earlier of like when someone asks a question, you don't just have to listen to their words, you have to work out why are they asking this question so you can work out the real answer. It's one of the things I try to do with anyone who helps me out. Like, okay, what is the reason here? And I try to work out for a while with you. Like, okay, is this like a? Do you want the promo on your channel? Is it important that people know Cracked Magnet is, or is it about the seed, or is it about? It's like it's always been a challenge for me to work out. Like, okay, what do I need to do to make the Cracked Magnet the happiest on this one? Because the seeds like like it's been like for the last couple years, it's probably like 1 in 3 seed Sundays, maybe more. They're like, yep, the whole series is being lifted up on your shoulders. So it's like, how do I make sure the person who's lifting up is happy? Do I put out a checkbook? Do I swallow enough plastic straws? What is the what that's it's an important thing for me to like make sure people who
Oh,
help me
yeah.
are happy.
I mean, I always like the channel credits that Harrison puts in. Just scrolls up there. Yep, yep. That no, that's great. It's like it's basically just a hey, there's more stuff out there,
Hmm.
which is always good. But the reality is the rewards mainly in looking at what the comments and things are. It's sort of seeing the feedback and the people like things. Um, on a slight side tangent, I hate negative seeds,
Like seeds with a
negative
negative
numbers.
in front of it?
Yeah,
Or, okay.
yeah, because if a seed got a negative number, you're going to get a whole pile of people saying it didn't work because they didn't put the minus
Yeah,
sign in front.
yeah. Oh god. The worst bit is how often I know about this and I still do it to myself. I'm like, oh, the seed didn't work. I'm like, oh, the negative because it doesn't automatically click into the copy paste.
Ah, is that what it is?
Yeah. Oh, have you ever like if I copy you've sent a seed for Trail Ruins, if you try double clicking it, it won't include the negative.
Oh, of course. Wait on, let me just try double click.
It might be different on Mac. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, no, no,
Oh, it is
no,
the
you're
same.
right.
Okay.
Yes, no, it
Yeah.
doesn't take the minus.
I've
I mean,
done this
it's
to
actually
myself
one of
so
the
many times.
it's one of the reasons why I did the whole seed link thing. Um, which
Yeah, that was weird to me.
I'm
That was one of those things where I was like, is this like a would you like it if crackmagnet.com was the destination for seeds? These are the thoughts that go through my head. But it was just like
oh,
a
feel
trying
free to
to
use it. Because in fact, I do recall fairly early on there was one of the errors that was in the log was someone trying to use the CD everything. I assume that might have been you.
Who knows? Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you had to tell me that was you couldn't use text seeds, which
Yeah, well
is
that's the error that would have come back. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Because it would have said basically I can't pass this as a number.
Everything is technically
But
not a
yeah.
number. Technically.
So one of the reasons I sort of did the URLs the way that I did them for that was that if that website was no longer available for whatever reason, the seed's still in the URL. So you can still get the seed from the URL, even if the site doesn't exist.
Yeah, right. You are helping people directly, but you're never. That's smart. I do. That is something I appreciate. Is the thinking about what happens when this eventually depreciates. Um, there's so much
Yeah.
of the internet that just doesn't work because it was designed around like, of course it'll always exist, and then goes away. So that's clever that the URL still contains the information. Smart.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, it also makes it easy to deal with as well. I don't actually have to,
I think a
I
lot of
just
people
copy and
get
paste.
cautious though about just a random link that gives them a download for something that should be a number, even though it helps them out in the long run. Because how often are people giving you convenience for your benefit versus how often is it for their benefit? Their nefarious
Yeah.
means.
Um, the thing that actually made me do that was if you try on at least iOS, I don't know about the other platforms, with the default keyboard, you cannot paste on an iPhone into the seed field.
Really? Oh yeah, yeah. It's a pain. Yeah, the on Android it takes a lot of doing. It doesn't want you to. You have to use the clipboard. You can't use the normal copy paste. And I don't think there's a clipboard on iPhone.
No, well, sort of. They're actually interesting because this is another thing where the Apple thing works out quite well because I use the iPad for a lot of seed checking. Because of course I have to do the PC and the non-PC
Uh huh.
because the loot changes.
Weird that they haven't fixed that yet. By the way.
Oh, it's logged. I've got it logged. It's confirmed.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
probably low priority though.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But one of the things you can do in the Apple universe is I'm on my
Go for
Mac.
it.
I can copy on the Mac and I can paste on the iPad.
That is something
And
I have a little bit of jealousy for. I've even heard. Maybe I'm mistaken this, but you can use the same cursor across both if you set it up in a certain way. So you could use your
yeah,
mouse for the
yeah.
same.
I discovered that accidentally going, what the hell is going on? Because it's like I was sitting in Minecraft and then I push my mouse pointer off the side of the screen and then it's moving this dot on the iPad and I'm like, wait on, I'm moving my, no, wait on, something's wrong. It's like I couldn't correlate that I was moving my mouse and it was affecting the iPad.
It's funny because that is the big benefit of like the Apple ecosystem is like they make everything, everything, everything. Whereas my Android phone by Samsung has no connection to my Asus PC that runs Windows software, and so it's like the having it all be done by the same people and having those benefits does sound quite nice. But I had an idea. If you like hearing feedback and you like the delivering on people's fun seeds, how's this for an idea? We'll do it on the very next Seed Sunday if you want. The top 5 comments, they can suggest anything they'd like to see in a seed. Obviously, within they could say within reason, but like with and whatever the top 5 comments are or top whatever comments are, you do your best to find the matching seed for it. Does that sound like a fun challenge?
The top 5 doable ones, because the number of
Yeah,
times
someone's
people
gonna say
ask for
like,
things that are
yeah,
actually impossible.
yeah. I think you could probably discount anyone who says like, I want an ocean monument in a village that's also at Y300. Like people are gonna not understand. But I think if you say like, yeah, anything that is achievable in a seed, uh, theoretically or not, let's go for it. And then we could like
Yeah.
cross out
I
the
mean,
ones when someone says
it's,
something that's physically impossible. But if someone's on the edge of impossible, you could find the like if someone says I want two
yeah, it's
villages
something close. Yeah.
128 blocks apart, that might be impossible,
Well,
or maybe 200. The tiniest gap between them is, and then there's a
well,
fun
like,
explanation in that.
one of the comments that I've had before is on the infinite mineshaft thing. Yeah, was they want the same thing with villages. It's like, no, doesn't happen. Can't.
I are you sure it cannot ever happen though?
Well, the
There's
the
minimum
problem you've
spacing,
got is
obviously.
yeah. So there's only one village per grid, and the grids are such size that the villages will never continuously touch each other.
The most you could ever get is 4 close together on one.
Basically, yeah.
Has that ever been
And I'm pretty
found?
sure I've
4
already.
villages that like,
Yeah, I
especially if you
think it
found
was
them in
part of
4
my.
different biomes, that'd be
I think
like,
it was part of my initial 1.19 set. I think I did 7 seeds, and one of them was designed around playing with friends. So it had mangrove and 4 villages that were very close. Once again, we got screwed by the center bias. So
Bedrock would do that.
on Java, it wouldn't be a problem.
Uh,
Because, of course, you're trying to get into the corners of not just one grid, but 4 of them to get them as
yeah,
close as you can.
all
So
at
you're
the
trying
same
to
time.
jam everything into the corners, and it's like, yeah, there is no 32-bit seed that will get them in the perfect spots. Because
You're
once
just
you've
trying to
got
go
that,
roughly, yeah.
well, you just go basically. I think all I did was just did the distance in a circle. It's like whatever's the lowest circumference.
Oh,
I'll
smart. Yeah,
just roll
that's
with that.
that's a whole extra layer of programming that I'd be like, just brute force it. That's smart to think about an actual circumference and get that going.
Oh,
Something I
one
wouldn't
one of
think
the
about.
hardest things, actually, when doing the seed searching is what is your metric? Like, what do you look at first? Because you might have 1,000 of results that come out just for the base seed. It's like, well, what is objectively the better one? And sometimes it's not what you think either. Because sometimes the transition of the biomes, how it tends to, so you might go, oh, the structure layout looks good, theoretically. But then when you go to actually find biomes to fit it, the biomes don't tend to lay out that way. Like, it's, I mean, it's like you can't find a nice spikes next to a desert. It just isn't going to happen. The
You could
temperature
find it with a
gradient just
very small biome in between, potentially, though, right? If you go small enough.
multiple biomes in between.
Yeah, I guess all the way from like two,
Yeah.
three small biomes in between. But then, yeah, by the time you add that, you're getting really close to impossible again. Um,
Well, yeah. I mean, and sometimes I've got these searches which I do just to create lists to find other seeds from. Like one of them is steep temperature gradients. So, because that's the one that tends to screw things up.
So
Who's
that
that jumping
that
up?
though is interesting because that this finding an ice spikes that was next to a desert would be unbelievably rare for you, but the average user might go, yeah, it's cool, but it's just two biomes. Whereas you're like, but look, it's they're not meant to be there, and that's a fun difference between what looks really interesting if you're someone who's deep into Minecraft, and what is interesting to the end user, which is why the infinite repeating village seed would blow people's minds away. It can never exist, obviously. But even if it was one village, then a little gap, then another village, and it went like 4 times in a row, people would be like, yes, this is the one I want, more so than that 1 in a trillion chance of deserts basically touching the end spikes by. I think that's an interesting, not the end spikes, ice spikes are, but it's an interesting case of that. Anyway, we have been going for a very long time. I think some of this might have to be cut down.
Oh,
But
tripped out. Yeah, absolutely.
it's
And also the camera battery is, even though it's plugged into power, is deciding it's flat. So obviously it's not delivering power at the rate it's draining it.
that's yeah, that is incredibly interesting. You'd figure plugged in should mean forever, but apparently not in your camera's case. You know, I still use a
It'll be
webcam
the
from it
USB
now, so you've
port.
got the higher quality video set up.
Yep, it's gone.
Oh yeah, you can't. So it was very nice to have you, Frozen Crack Magnet. You got a very concerned face on right now, but I'll trust that it is smiling and enjoying the time. And if you want to give Crack Magnet a seed recommendation, sounds like on Sunday. We'll work it out obviously off camera before then, but sounds like on Sunday
Yeah.
we'll be able to do you name a seed, and if it's possible, the legend himself will find it. Thank you so much for making the time to be here today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Thanks for letting me have you. can take these
That
panties
sounds
back.
slightly wrong, but
Yeah,
alright.
but I hope you have a very good night, because it's very early in the day for me, but very late in the day for you because you live on the wrong side of the planet.
Yeah, it's 11 p.m., so I'm getting a little sleepy.
Have a good nap.
Will do.
See ya.
Bye.
Well, I don't see you right now, but I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.
Cool. See you.